We're going to call this meeting to order. It is 6 p.m. If those are busy and would like to sign in for us, I guess if you're an attorney, you don't need to sign in. Sorry. I'd like to welcome you out to City Council meeting tonight. We're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Chaves and then an opening prayer by Councilman Sands.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we are thankful that we can gather here this evening. We're thankful for your creation. We're thankful for your majesty. We are thankful for being here in Tokerville City. We are thankful for the 360 views that we have throughout our city. I'm just grateful. We ask that you would bless our residents, that you would bless our city, that you would bless our city officers and staff, and of course, the mayor and council. We humbly ask that you would give us wisdom tonight, understanding and insight as we work through our agenda. And we do, Father, appreciate the beautiful sunshine that we've been experiencing, but we do humbly ask that we get some moisture, some rain, some snow, some snowpack so that we can restore our bodies of water. And we're grateful for your Son, our Lord and Savior, and we lift up these prayers in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Gary. If anyone else has another prayer, an opening statement of belief they'd like to, please come forward now. All right, we're going to move on to our agenda, but real quick, we'd just like to, we canceled last meeting because there wasn't much on the agenda, so we got a lot to go on tonight. Feels like we haven't been here for a while, so that's probably a good thing. We're going to move on to the agenda. So everybody had a chance to look at the agenda tonight. Is there anything we need to move, or would you like the order of the agenda?
I move that we go ahead and approve the agenda.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Disclosure of declaration of conflicts from any of the city council members. I have none.
Yeah, I got a disclosure, Mayor. So
Okay.
for items 1 and 2, I'm a resident of Mesa Views, VR Homes, built my home, and we are in the process of working through some issues in our backyard.
Okay. Okay, well, it's good to know.
Which
Yeah.
is what the attorneys recommended that I,
Right, so
Disclose.
abstain from the discussion. Yeah.
pardon me,
You would abstain from the.
I would.
discussion.
And why
From
is
the
that?
discussion or just the vote?
From the discussion, if you're conflicted.
I'm not
that's what
conflicted.
advice.
I'm not
He's just
conflicted. I'm just
disclosing
disclosing that.
Okay, if your position is that you're not conflicted, you can still participate in the discussion.
Okay. And the vote? Well, we're not, we're
We're not-
just
yeah, we're just-
discussion.
yeah.
tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I'd like
Okay.
Todd to be able to discuss this with us, so. Okay, perfect. Anybody else?
None.
All right, we're going to move on to consent agenda review and possible approval of meeting minutes from December 18th, 2024 city council meeting.
Mayor, make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 18th.
Good. I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Sorry. All right. Review and possible approval of city expenditures from December 2024.
I move that we go ahead and approve the city expenditures for December of 2024.
Okay.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on the city expenditures? I'd like to do a roll call vote on this one. We'll start on your end, Joey.
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries. All right, we're going to get into our city reports. Start off with Ash Creek. They are not here this evening, which no problem. We're going to move into Hurricane Valley Fire District. Merlin, up to you.
Okay, we've been staying busy. We made some big changes this month. We shifted the battalion chiefs around. We got different assignments with different crews, and it's been interesting so far. It's kind of like right in 2024, you don't put a certain shift down, you're now a new shift instead of a C shifter, you're a B shifter, things like that. So it's a good learning curve. It's good to get to know some of the other guys. And right now we're well staffed, and we've got a crew down in California. Took a truck down, 3 guys down to help down there. Just keep praying for those people down there, especially for the firefighters. The way those winds get going, it's like a blowtorch, trying to stop a blowtorch without being able to turn off a switch. So just pray for the people down there and the firefighters and the local government. That's all I'll say on that. And, but we're doing well. Is there anything you guys have for us?
Thank you.
No, you guys are doing an awesome job. There was a lot of calls this year. We're up to, it was over 6,000
Over
calls
6,000, yep.
for the total year. I think 2 years ago it was 4,000. So you guys have got a lot busier. One thing I'd like to mention, the sales tax referendum to put some money from sales tax to our Hurricane Valley Fire District has a number for the House now. The Senate House.
Yeah,
Bill
it actually went
76.
from the House to the Senate. So
Yeah, so
the chief will be up there for
next
a little-
week, when it
little bit,
or 2
yeah.
weeks, week and a half when it starts.
Yeah.
So
up
that's,
there for that.
I talked to Representative Eagleson and he's pushing hard. So I'm pretty sure that's going to go through really quick.
Yeah, we're hoping that'll go through and then we
We'll-
won't even push the other sales through or hopefully drop it, keep it where we're at or lower. So that's what
Right,
we're hoping
that's the
for.
plan. The property tax increase that we voted on in the last of, or in November, we're going to reverse that and put it back to where it was. And then hopefully in a year from then, we can even reduce property tax lower than that. So that's our goal. So that's good things happening from the fire district.
Yeah, busy time.
Yep. Any questions from Merlin, guys?
Thank
All
you.
right, we're going to move on to Valerie Pressler, Planning Commission.
Hi. Okay, at our meeting last week, we chose a new chair. Well, not new. They voted me back in as the chair for this year. And Dean Haymore is the pro tem again. We worked on policies, our policies and procedures manual. We finished it up, actually.
Oh, great.
And so it is ready to go to legal. We have the annexation policy coming up next month at our meeting. And of course, there'll be another public hearing for it. So you guys may see that next month. We'll see. And there's a few more ordinances that are coming, but they haven't got to us yet. So.
Great. You guys are doing a great job. We appreciate all your time and energy. That's
Oh, and I do need to say that Gary Tomsick did not renew because he was done.
Right.
And Lonnie Christensen
Lonnie
moved up.
Yep, yeah. And our alternate is,
Mila,
right, I can't remember.
yeah, do you remember?
Okay,
Emily, I don't remember her last name, but she came to the meeting last week.
perfect,
So
perfect.
we got to know her a little bit.
Ben, we decided one was enough, or we're going to go for two?
We have two.
We have two
We
now.
had two alternates?
Glenn
Oh,
Levitt
Glenn
is
Levitt, That's
the
right. He's our other one.
first one. Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. That's right. Thanks for reminding me.
Mhm.
All right, any questions for Val?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All
You're
right,
welcome.
we're going to go to Darren Lefevre, Assistant City Manager. What have you got for us? Highway, bypass?
For right now, I'm not going to give a whole lot. We got a short video. This is actually from the contractor, from Judd Palmer and Excavation. Essentially, we are now working on getting the power pole off of the top. People have seen the excavation being done there in the field next to the cemetery, or just north of the cemetery. And that is because they are putting the power line that's on top right there, spanning across that gap, underground. And this will come down here in the next probably couple months. You'll see a lot of that excavation. They do have some excavation that they'll be taking up the sides of the road there from about Choya Creek entrance up to the entrance of the cemetery. So be cautious when you're going through that area with travel. And they are working pretty quickly on all of that. We're continuing to get the model complete for the 4-lane build out on the parkway so that we can make sure that everything land acquisition wise is complete and correct, and that we have everything that UDOT needs there for the transfer of the two jurisdictional highways. So
Perfect.
really, that's about it. We're
What-
just continuing
I
to
do
move
have a
forward.
question on the north end. I saw a track hoe up there.
Yep.
Monday,
so they're working on the north side there, the
temporary.
that's just
tie-in
a
or-
temporary tie-in,
Yeah.
is what you're seeing, as well as they're clearing some of that hillside for the actual bid package A tie-in as well. So they're making preparations for that.
Perfect. And so just so everybody knows, there will be a drastic speed change
Yes.
around that corner as you climb up to if you're coming from Tocqueville out to the freeway, either direction, but they'll be slowing down about halfway around the corner to 40 and then to 30.
Yeah, and then basically what they're doing is they're going to do a temporary tie-in at the north side, the north end, where eventually so it will only be temporary what you're
Yep.
driving through.
And
Until,
it's going to be, you'll have to have a deliberate right-hand turn if you're coming from the
Yeah.
freeway to get onto that subdivision to
yeah,
keep
so
people
there
from
is,
accidentally going.
UDOT is allowed to have an access there for
Yep.
the Firelight subdivision down there from that north end, but they won't be able to go all the way through.
Right.
So it'll just be able to go down to the subdivision and then have to turn around and come back out the exact same way.
Most traffic will take the same route.
Yeah, yeah. So most of the traffic, if you're bypassing through Tocqueville, you'll still just go as you always normally
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
So
Perfect. Any questions for Darren on bypass road at this time? Anything else? All right, we're going to move on to Ben Billingsley, our city manager.
Yep. Just wanted to report that JD finished his 2024 water reporting to the state. We reported an 11.9% system water loss, which is within acceptable range. In total, they repaired 22 leaks in 2024. And moving into 2025, we're going to be more closely tracking direct costs associated with water leaks, which we haven't done in the past. Just as a matter of for your information, the city's domain will be transferring to tocqueville.utah.gov within probably about the next month. This is a state mandate from a recent legislative session that all political subdivisions of the state are required to use this domain. We're going to facilitate the transition by kind of doing it a little earlier than required. I think the deadline is sometime in June. And so we're going to do it ahead of schedule so that we can, if there's any problems that happen, we can be ahead of that. Our email addresses will be changing. We're going to, we will retain the domain tocqueville.org. And everything will be redirected. So we'll redirect emails for a period of time. I think Ash Creek is actually the first entity, or one of the first entities that has followed through with this. A couple other cities and towns have done it already too, but that'll be coming down. I'm happy to report it's not an unfunded mandate. The state is paying for it for all cities smaller than 10,000 for all Class 5 cities. So we're covered there. We also have a few items have been brought to my attention that there have been some website updates kind of in the same world that have been needed to be made in the last little bit. We've made arrangements. So Bailey will be making those website updates here in the coming weeks. We'll start with the most critical stuff first and then move on to the kind of more medium and long-term goals after that. That's all I have to report.
Just one quick thing. Thank you for making the area available down by the park for everybody to put their trees and cut off parts and things. It's getting to be kind of big now. I guess the date for closing that down was the 5th of January. I'd like to make a suggestion in the future that we make it a little bit longer because this week is the beginning of pruning season. It might be a good place to cut all those prunings, especially for my 50 trees.
Merlin, we still have the fire crew come over and ship those?
Yeah, just let us know when you're ready and you
Okay.
can send crews over. Of course, they're gone right now, but
Right. Yeah.
just
when they get back.
surprisingly, but yeah.
Okay. All right.
I can make note of that. Thank you.
All right. Well, we're going to go into our presentations. First off, we're going to start with our Christmas lighting contest winner announcement. We have Bailey here. She's going to take care of that. And yes.
Okay, this is super exciting. We have a trophy along with some money. So if you want to switch to the next slide. All right, so our first place winner is Grady and Kathleen Johnson. Are they here today? I know someone said they might come. Okay, well, I will make sure I tell them that this is for them.
Where do they live?
Okay, if you want to go to the next one. Our second place is David Missel. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Is David here? No, but I also have that for him. Okay. And then our next winner is Shelly Nakaoka. Okay, great, you're here. Welcome. Yay. All right, that's super great. Something that I want to mention is our Tokerville's lights were mentioned in, where was it again?
Yes, Salt Lake Tribune had coverage of Tokerville's lighting tradition. So
Yeah, so it's really cool. I think we should keep this going, and I think it's really awesome that you guys were doing it. So yeah. Yeah, you are. Oh, yes. Oh, switch over. Sorry. Our honorable mention is Gordon Dotson. Yes. So is Gordon Dotson here at all? Okay, great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Bailey. If you guys if you don't live in Tokerville, come Christmas time, you need to drive around town. It's absolutely amazing. You know, the four best of the city don't even go into the competition because they've all won it before. And three of them are here on the stage with us. So, Heath.
Win if you were the subsequent years.
Well, they've decided to opt themselves out. Yeah, they've won enough. They're good. And three of them are city council members, so it looks a little fishy. So we're going to try to keep it, you know.
Ran out of trophy space on
The one thing to mention is the top winners, 1, 2, and 3, will be the judges
For next year.
And they will not.
So that's what that's what the money's for, is your time next year. All right. Well, thank you very much. Bailey, we appreciate you. Love you coming, but I know there's probably someplace you'd rather be. So thank you. All right. We have a very special presentation next. We have the Hurricane High School Robotics Club, the Black Ops Club. So they contacted me about getting some notoriety or some public appearance before they get started. They are really looking for financial help. You know, we unfortunately we don't put as much time and energy into engineering, machining, electronics as we do football and basketball. So they're here. They're going to give us a small presentation. That's what this contraption is on the table here. They brought it over to us a couple weeks ago and we looked at it. It's pretty neat. This is last year's robot that they went to state with. I believe they won state. I'm going to have them give their little presentation. And they went to California, and it's hard to compete in California when you got 3-generation robot builders down there. You go down to, you know, Pasadena, and those guys have been building robots. Their grandpa was building robots. So anyways, our robotic team in Hurricane is very, very well accomplished. So they've got a little presentation they're going to give for us. And then hopefully we'll go from there. We'll see what you got. Come on up, guys.
Hi, my name is Nicole Bennett. I'm the captain on the robotics team, and we have this short video to show. And then afterwards, we are open to any questions or anything that you guys want to know about our team. We have a lot to share. So here's that video. Thanks.
We are Team Black Ops, the robotics team at Hurricane High School. Our mission is to help kids get involved in STEM and use it to become successful after high school. This mission applies to kids of all ages. We don't just build robots, we inspire kids in and out of the club, create and run Lego robotics teams, and visit elementary schools to promote innovation and STEM. Our team runs through an international program called FIRST, and we are the only team in all of Southern Utah competing at the highest level of the program. Each season, there is a new themed challenge that includes many tasks for the robot to accomplish. With each season start, we make a new robot, about 30 cubic inches in size. From scratch, we build and code it depending on the tasks of the yearly challenge. The FIRST program does more than outline rules and robot strategies. FIRST helps kids from all backgrounds know their potential. The program encourages us to learn more about the world, solve hard problems, and make an impact wherever we may be. Our competitions take us to Northern Utah and to other states as well. Our hope is to qualify again for the world competition in Houston this April. We want to show people how amazing the kids from Southern Utah can be, but running a robotics team gets very expensive. Not only do costly robot parts add up, but we have a group of 20 kids to feed, shelter, and transport for every competition. We love our community, and that includes you guys. We need your support if we want to keep going. Our team is most in need of financial support, but if you're interested in mentoring our team or have community exposure opportunities for us, please reach out. On the screen, there will be a URL or a username for our school's Venmo account. If you can donate, please put robotics in the memo or the money won't go to us. Only the word robotics, no emojis. Our email will also be there if you would like to reach out to us. If 100 people donated $10, that would be $1,000. Your contribution counts, and we are so grateful for every one of you. Black Ops out.
So everybody get your cell phones out quick, open up your Venmo.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Come on up. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I don't have much to say, but
Okay.
thanks for watching the video. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, we're totally willing to answer them. Yes.
Who did the machine vote for?
Who did the machine vote for?
That's a hard question. Yeah.
It's not a voting machine?
He actually wrote us in, the captains.
Can we get on our Facebook account, the Venmo and stuff? Is that something we can, and just kind of push it out? That would be great. Emily? Okay. Anybody, if you're watching at home, tell your neighbors. Like I said, it doesn't take a lot of money. If we have a bunch of us, we can help out a bunch, and we can really make a difference for them. Anybody else have any questions for?
What the task, it has to pick up so many balls, then it has to throw that Frisbee. What is the task that is it a different task every year?
Mhm, yes.
Oh.
So sometimes it's a little similar. Would you want to explain?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So yeah, every year they release a new task. So like last year we had to pick up 14, like the little balls you saw was a scrimmage we competed in like last August. It wasn't actually season. But yeah, last year we had to pick up like 14-inch wide foam rings, and we had to pick them up, and then there were 2 goals that we had to score them in. And one of them I think was like up to 10 feet tall. It was a big wooden thing in the video. And then the robot like used a QR coding camera, and then like aimed, and it took a lot of programming, a lot of machining, and then we do all of it at our own high school. And yeah, and this year we just got our season release like last week, and this season we had to pick up like, they're like similar to kickballs, but they're like twice the size, and then we had to pick up big PVC pipes, and it like just move them around the field and like score them in different goals.
So that's what I really liked is you're learning how to draw the parts in CAD, and you're cutting them out on a laser or a water jet. You're programming a lot of stuff, and you're not just making the machine or programming the machine, but you have to build the machine.
Yeah, completely
So-
from scratch too.
Yeah, and that's neat. It's awesome. I mean, I wish the Hurricane High when I went there had a water jet and a laser, but I don't know if they even had those back then.
You wouldn't have
but-
graduated.
Yeah, I had a hard time graduating anyways. But yeah, we had the Apple IIe, I believe. That's what we had. I think this is awesome, outstanding. I hope Tokerville folks will donate some money to you, because I think this is outstanding, and it's well worth the time and the money. So
For sure. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I just hear an awful lot about your group, and I know how many hours that you spend doing this after school and how much traveling you're doing to compete. So thank you guys for that.
Always, yeah. I love doing it. So
That's awesome. Now you're going into engineering, right? That's your plan?
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Perfect.
Merlin.
Merlin.
Is there any other schools in the area getting interested in it because of you guys?
So we've heard of, so there's 3 levels of competition. There's First Lego League, which a lot of young kids are like involved in. We have some public teams open in Hurricane. And then there's First Tech Challenge, which is like their robots are probably 18, I think they're 18 by 18 inches. And then there's ours, which can be up to 30 inches in perimeter and has no height limit. And then, so I'm pretty sure we're the only team I think there's maybe 10 teams in all of Utah that compete in our level. And then we're the only team in Southern Utah. And I think CTE is looking to open a new team for the smaller robots. But that's all I know of.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
So, and I'm like Bailey, you don't have to stay. So if you guys want to get your robot and get out of here and not have to sit through this meeting, we'll give you a minute to go. But you're welcome to stay if you want. I'm not gonna. Yeah, you gotta get back to work.
No extra credit if you stay.
Well, Well, this doesn't have the battery in it and it's
Yeah.
missing a few parts, so.
Without the battery and there's bumpers, I think this is 90 maybe.
That sounds about right.
Is it 75? I forget.
Well, 90 sounds right, because it can be like 130 with bumpers.
Did it move as fast as it did in the video?
Faster.
Yeah.
For something that heavy?
Yeah.
And there are other robots that,
We got better wheels this year.
we'll have to come back and show it to you again.
Perfect. We'll come back next year and we'll do it again. We'll fundraise all you can for you. So, thank you. See you guys. All right, we are going to move this into our public forum. This is, anybody can get up and talk about anything that's not on the agenda. You have 3 minutes and please state your name.
Good evening. My name's Dean Haymore. I live at 2180 South Sunshine Lane. A couple of things. I got 3 items I wanted to bring to your attention today. First off, solutions. One of the things I've asked Darren to look in and stuff is I know that you're looking for an easement to get that water line from the new plant up to the ponds and stuff. And I'm willing to let that water line come through my property because their pipe is right at the bottom corner of my property. And then the new water line with the hydrant that you brought up from Shangri-La is at the other corner of my property. And so that's a good shot. I know it does go over a mountain and things like that, but there might be a solution to get your easement so you don't have to mess with the mess that they are doing down here going through that cut. One of the reasons why is the former city manager kicked me off the water system during the summer with the heights and everything because we don't have irrigation water. And I, Darren and staff a couple of times asking and proving that you can't do that by state law. It's second things. When I did come in and get water, they only allowed me to have a half acre water to where Merlin's still here. He wanted some water for protection. I brought a 2-inch line in for 3/4 miles of my property. I put a pond in there for 20,000 gallons. Some of you have been up there, so we could pump off that pond. Seeing these fires and being in emergency management and county government for years, I'm very scared about protecting my own property and keeping that from going right on over to the other houses and things like that. So I asked that my water rates went from the $80 to $100 to $500 to $600 this last year because she said I didn't qualify, but for 3 years prior, I qualified and I paid the upfront money and I was on those water rates. So I'm asking that you can consider that if it needs to be put on the agenda or if I need to come, I've been told to bring that to city council. So easements.
Is that the reduced rate for irrigation?
Yeah.
Yes.
The summer months. Yeah.
My water meter is right up on the heights.
Yeah.
They made me put it right up there. And so I'm within the subdivision. I brought plenty of proof that you can't change the laws on one person. So then she came up and said, okay, we'll let you have it, but you're going to have to put $5,000 in up front. Your fee is because you have 45 acres. But the letter and everything else the county approved, the city approved for me was that I could only use a half acre of water for my facility where my house is. So.
Okay, we'll look into that.
Third, real quick, I don't know what the timer says. 30 years with government, being in emergency management, seeing everything going on. I would volunteer to be on your emergency management team, your emergency plan, your training and everything so we can protect our community so we don't have a fire. They did a great job when that fire was here last year with all the fire departments coming in and saving it, going across and everything else. But I believe we're getting big enough. And I know Ben has already told me they're working on the FEMA requirements and federal requirements to have an emergency plan for the city. And I want to be part of that solution and try to help. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Len Williams, 1075 East Ramos. I would like to ask permission to speak quickly on business items 1 and 2.
I was going to call on you.
Oh, you were? Okay. Okay, we were basically the gates on Trail Ridge subdivision?
We want to wait till.
Yeah, let's,
Or would you rather call them something else?
no, gates are
Okay.
fine, but I think we'll get into this when we get into actual business items.
Okay, you want me to do it later?
Yep.
Got it.
Yep.
You can't sneak out there. Kathy Bentz, 370 West Shangri-La. And I just wanted to say something quickly. I know that you on the council all know this, but these California fires that everybody's had their eyes on, this hit us personally. We know 3 people who lost homes and a whole bunch of people that were evacuated because we moved from the Pasadena area. So I kept thinking about how there were 3 things that I kept seeing in the news, and high winds, of course, and that can't be controlled. I understand that. But there were, in some places, lots of homes that were very dense and built very close together, and that made it harder because these flames could jump easily from one house to another. And then, of course, there were water issues. There just didn't seem to be enough water to take care of this. So I kept thinking, can something like this happen here? Well, we live next to Hurricane, which is named because of the high winds that we have all the time. So we know we can get those winds. And then I know certainly, you know that I know because I'm always complaining about this, but it just seems like we always have developers with their eyes on Tokerville wanting to come in and build as many homes as they can and get the zoning changed so they can put homes in as small area as they can and get these dense homes close together. So that could happen here too. And it seems like we hear a lot about water and how there's not enough water. So I know that you all know that life and safety has to be a huge priority. And I just want you to keep in mind, I mean, how dense is Tokerville going to become? We can't control the winds, but we can control the density. And where will the water come from if there was some kind of a nightmarish, horrible fire like we're witnessing in California? And just want to remind you, I hope that's your biggest consideration. Thanks.
Thanks, Kathy. Anybody else? All right, we are going to move into our business items. Item G1, discussion regarding North Grand Canyon Parkway Gate and water tank access chain. Ben, you want to start? Okay, we've got it a little perfect.
Yep. I don't have my clicker. If you want to advance to the next slide. So this is the picture of the gate we're referencing. So this is at the north end of Grand Canyon Parkway. And then the next one is the chain that accesses the water tank, the city water tank. And both of these are in the same discussion because if you open one, you gain access to the same area as if you, essentially it's a network here. So if you open one, then you gain access to the entire area. I wanted to just provide a brief overview. This has been discussed in 2 council meetings in the last couple of years. And so I wanted to just give a very high level overview before we get into this discussion. We broke this out into 2 different conversations because they're really very different purposes. The first thing that I want to point out is that the primary purpose of this north gate and the purpose of opening it would be for recreation access only. It's not a public safety matter, but there are some historic recreation opportunities in this area. So again, I mentioned that the chain and gate restrict access to the same area. The chain was not requested by the city. The water tank otherwise meets all DEQ regulatory requirements. So basically what this means is, our water tank is fenced and gated. So we don't need that chain's not needed for the city in order to maintain our status with the city, with the state. This next item is something that hasn't yet been talked about in city council meetings in the past. So I wanted to bring it up just because it's important. I spoke with the BLM field office today in St. George regarding the status of these trails. So we're talking really about 2 trails. The first is primarily from my perspective is a mountain biking trail. And this is kind of more on a personal note, but I think it's important to note prior to my working for the city, I knew Tokerville for 3 things. Tokerville Falls being first and foremost, the incoming Toker Reservoir, and for this mountain biking trail. So Tokerville does have, I mean, whether or not that's desirable or not, it does have the reputation for this Nephi's Twist mountain biking trail. It's unique in the state. It's unique in the country. There's really no other trail like it. It has some unique features that no other trails throughout the state have. So it is kind of an interesting trail network. And then there's an ATV trail that can be used to access the area up by the Livercan shooting range. And the note here that I made about the BLM is that it's subject to future travel management plan process. So I believe throughout the state, there are 11 different possibilities. There are 11 different areas that are subject to this travel management plan. The BLM has already undertaken four or five of these travel management plans. Like Grand County, San Juan County has already gone through this process where a lot of these undesignated, informal trails, whether that's single track or double track, were closed as part of the travel management plan. And a lot of that depends on local support. And the reason that I bring this up is because how I see this going in the future is if access is restricted to this, to these ATV trails, hiking and mountain biking trails, it's highly likely that it wouldn't be recognized in the travel management plan by the BLM, because there's no legal access to them, in which case they would be closed indefinitely. And I don't mean to use that as a scare tactic, more just to say, if this is a priority of the city council to pursue this, this is the time that we do it. It's not we don't pursue this when the travel management plan is active and they're going through the public process. What we would need is the city would need to take action pretty quickly and make this a high priority to get public access and to recognize that as a current trail. Because right now the trail it's not a recognized trail, but it's also not a closed trail by the BLM. So it's operating in the gray zone. The BLM, when you ask the BLM, they say, yes, you can use this trail, but it's just simply not recognized. I will say it's important to note the history of the gates are because there was noise. There was it was used as kind of a dumping ground from what I understand, and it was used for illegal camping on private property, just general trespassing. And so that was the reason for the closure. And really that area doesn't have the facilities to accommodate a trailhead. It's simply just not a trailhead. And so that's kind of a lot of the background for the closure. That really summarizes as I listened to these meetings back in February of last year and then August the year before that. Heath actually spoke to that in that August meeting. The question that this comes down to, kind of before I just open it up to City Council for your discussion, is the City Council needs to determine if this is a priority, if these recreational opportunities are important to develop for the city. Kayla and I were talking about it, and she may have a few things to say, but essentially initially this will require staff time. It'll require some time to figure out what that would look like, and very highly likely it would cost money as well. So there would be a financial burden, as the city would have to work with the developer. Ideally, we wouldn't push this through a legal process. We'd push this kind of through just working directly with the developer, but we'd likely have to acquire some land as part of this, if it was a priority of the city council to kind of pursue this.
Would we have to acquire land because the gates are currently located on private property, or?
Simply because there's no development. I feel like in order to justify the opening of the gate, the city would have to be able to mitigate, and this was discussed in prior meetings, the city would have to mitigate some of the problems that have been happening with just having it open and it's on private property.
I'll chime in and answer your question. I don't think it's not working.
It's working.
So to answer your question, Joey, currently this gate blocks off a portion of land that's the developer's private land. It hasn't been developed yet. So you would be asking the developer to give a right to access this land. He would probably want something in exchange, but that would be the process for moving forward, is to try to work with him to buy some sort of right to access that trail, or to sue for a prescriptive easement, essentially saying, citizens have used this land for X amount of years, therefore we have a right to it, that sort of thing.
I would say this would be a great opportunity. I think there's probably no better use for a Utah Outdoor Office of Recreation grant. They issue a lot of grant money. This would be a project that would be, pretty well tailored. If nothing is done, then there would be a loss of these trails, which, just depends on what the priority of the city and the council is. I would speak there is one more item that I'd like to draw attention to. There is the amended development agreement between the developer and the city does speak in some opaque language regarding the development of Nephi's Twist Trail in the development agreement through phase 1. So it specifically speaks to this trail, and there's the language you can see. It's, that there will be minor enhancements to Nephi's Twist where it passes through future phases if needed. So, that's kind of open to interpretation as I read it, but it does, in the amended development agreement, it does speak to that. So thank you. That'll open it up to city council discussion. Mayor can do that.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Todd, we'll start with you. I know you've got.
Me?
Yeah, let's start. Let's just get, because what you've got might answer a lot of other people's questions.
Okay, so, we moved up to Mesa Views in February 21. We were looking, the gate was open. And then as Ben brought up, the developer closed the gate. And back then I asked him why. And because, like Ben said, he was having trouble with trespassing, camping, trash, shooting, parties, and all that stuff. Now, this was during COVID also. So that was the reason he closed it off. The area, like Ben said, is private property where the gate is. And I don't know, Ben, if you have the actual property lines there, because the lower part on the north end of the gate is private property. So like you said, we would have to see if the developer was interested in allowing for the city to do something to get through there. So that would be a concern. If I understand correctly, if I'm reading the development agreement, that's a future phase, that area, and that is intended to be developed, and that area of Nephi's Twist would be something that eventually would be turned over to the HOA in that area for the HOA use. So something similar to, I don't know, like Cholla has their own walking trails that is only available to the Cholla HOA. So that, I believe, is what the intention of the developer is in that area. So those are some of the concerns on that north end. If we move to the other end, which is the road that leads up to the water tank. So I'm not sure if in that development agreement, it talks about a road named, and maybe Darren knows, it talks about a road named Golden Spike Road. And I'm not sure, is that road?
No, I don't believe that's Golden Spike.
I haven't been able to find any Golden
Okay,
Spike Road.
so I wasn't sure where that is, but
I think there's another road that comes in the future that will go even south again.
okay. So regardless, the chain road that goes up to the water tank, the easement again goes through the same property, correct?
Well, so that portion where the chain is, we're down at the very bottom. If you look at the recorded plat,
Okay.
there is Tokerville City owns that roadway up to about where you start climbing up to the tank.
Okay.
So yeah, right there you can see that we own that.
So
And I think that Golden Spike is that other one.
Okay,
right
so,
there. I'm not positive, but
okay, so if we're talking about that easement, if you're talking about the road that goes up to the water tank.
yeah, and it's
So the
actually,
city owns it.
yeah,
So,
it's dedicated roadway per the plat.
okay, and as you're going up that roadway, there is a trail that leads off to the left.
Mhm.
and goes down to Nephi's Twist. That goes through private property.
Correct.
Okay, so and then the end of the city-owned portion up to the water tank, that
Can
goes
you guys
back-
turn on the aerial again real quick?
that property is owned by TRE, TRE Phase 1 HOA.
It is. It's a
So-
common area. And we,
okay.
and we have an easement
So-
across that.
So, so if we were going to work to open up the north end of Grand Canyon Parkway, we'd have to be working through private property to get some sort of agreement. If we opened up the city road to the water tank, we'd have to work with the HOA to allow access. And then you could go down the backside of the water tank. There's a trail that goes down,
Yeah,
and
you
that'll
can.
get you onto Nephi's Twist. I don't think that comes out, I think where it comes out, it's still private property. But if you go a little bit to the right toward
The north
the
or west.
yeah, toward
East.
east toward the shooting range, then it turns into BLM land.
Correct. Correct.
So those are some of the concerns that I would have if we were going to start opening up these areas. So those, and then now it is accessible if you come down from the Luverne shooting range, but there are the developer has put no trespassing signs up where their property starts, but they've been vandalized and taken down and destroyed and everything else, and they put them back up and they've been destroyed. So those are the concerns that I think the city should look at if we want to move forward on some of those areas.
So Todd, what do you think the neighbors would think having
Well, that would be the next
all the
concern.
noise with those
Yeah,
side-by-sides?
and that would be the next concern. And when you guys had the meeting back in August of 22, I wasn't on the council, and at that time, the mayor was not allowing not our mayor, but a previous mayor was not allowing public forum. So I wrote a letter with some of my concerns not being on the council. But if we opened up the north end or the Chain Lake area, we have the potential of opening up somewhat like Spring Drive with people coming in, trailers, side-by-sides, all that stuff. Just playing out an idea, let's say we opened up the city portion on the dirt road there on the south end. Are we going to allow people to park their side-by-sides or their trucks and trailers on that dirt road and with access? Are we going to provide receptacles for their trash, all that kind of stuff? Let's say we decide that we're going to open up the other end and work with the developer. Are we going to allow people to park their stuff in the park? Are we going to allow them to park it on Arches Street? Are we going to allow them to park on the dead end that leads into that area? So those are just kind of the concerns to think about as we work through this issue.
Yeah, and if you open a trailhead, then they could have some parking, but the way the side-by-side laws are now is they can drive from Hurricane, they can drive right down the highway.
Sure.
And buzz up any one of your roads to get to this project. Tocqueville's facing the same problem with the Springs. They
Correct.
come from everywhere.
Correct.
Plus trucks and trailers.
Yeah.
And it's fairly annoying, actually.
Yeah, well, and I understand that it's a quick way to get up to the Luverne shooting range, so you go shooting without having to go out on the roads and stuff. But if your intention is to go to Toker Falls, then like you said, you can take the roadway up and pick it up Rattlesnake Gulch that goes out to Toker Falls that way from the Luverne shooting range.
Yeah.
And then the other question too is, and when Councilman Bringhurst made his, he went back a little bit in that August 22nd, and he talked a little bit about the history of Nephi's Twist. And he said it was a hiking trail, biking or mountain biking and horseback riding. But he never mentioned motorized vehicles. So I don't know whether historically it was motorized vehicles or not. I'm not sure on that.
Well,
We didn't have those kind of.
you had two-wheel drive motorcycles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a bicycle, but yeah, there wasn't side-by-sides. Four-wheelers came around eventually, but yeah, that wasn't open. It was mainly horses and motorcycles.
Yeah.
Is what it was. I mean, if we go far enough, that was the way you got down here from Virgin. I mean, how far back? I can't believe the BLM doesn't have that trail on. Honestly, that's been there for 100 and some odd years. So it's a lot of historical. Yeah. Yeah. Heath was our attorney at the time. It's that trail's been there for 150 years. So.
Yeah. And I mean, how do you enter?
1858 was built.
1858, that's when Tocqueville started. So
Yeah.
that's about the same year.
Yeah, actually the same time.
Yeah.
They
And how,
built Tocqueville.
And they built the road.
yeah. And how do you interface private property rights versus?
Absolutely. No, that's the
versus-
question. Lynn, you want to come up and I know you've got some things you'd like to say. So that's why I wanted you to, we're just going to stay on the north end for now.
North end, you want to talk about?
Well, north end or the water tank road, but not the.
Okay, well,
Nephi's twist.
actually,
Nephi's twist.
what we're discussing here, in my opinion, right now is 6 Philadelphia lawyers aren't going to get squared away in 10 years. But my immediate concern is both those gates are in violation of the International Fire Code. Okay, I have given the city manager the exact codes that are affected. There's no way in a few minutes or even in this meeting that we can get into the do's, don'ts, et cetera. But one thing real quick is that's considered an historic trail, even their own amended maps from the developer call it an historic trail. And if you look at the highway, and actually the state would consider that a highway because it's usage prior to 1976, which we wouldn't have a problem proving one way or the other. And it didn't make any, it's called a highway and there's certain rules for highways, whether you're riding a donkey or a skateboard. It doesn't make any difference what the mode of transportation is. Okay, I'm going to go back to the fire code. The fire code is violations are very simple, straightforward violations. We can take a tape measure and I can ride anybody out there and establish exactly what the problem is. Actually, the fire code, the fire department, Bergen Valley in July of 2020 told the city council at a city council meeting that the north gate was illegal. 5 years ago, for Pete's sake, boys. And I'm not too sure why it's still there. The number one concern, well, not number one of the top concerns of the city and city council should be for public safety. As far as I know, public safety is the only concern of the fire department. Why is that gate still there 5 years later? I hope that some action has been taken on it. I hope that we are not having this meeting to discuss whether we should take action on a fire code violation. I don't think that this is standard procedure. If you've got a fire code, we have to have a city council meeting before we do anything about it, let alone wait 5 years to do something. I think 5 years is long enough to think about it, boys. Thank you.
Can I
Okay.
address the fire code?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to Westfields Road. Okay.
Do we have to?
No, but I'm just going to throw that as an example, okay? So we come back to the subdivision that was built up there, Trail Ridge and all that. They're all violations because there's too many houses and not enough accesses. So we can't blame it back onto we can throw it back to the fire department. But we have a master key. And we have agreements with Chase Stratton with Interstate Rock to go through that side. That is emergency access that luckily we have there for the city if we need it, or for us to get in there if we need it. And then also we have an agreement with is it Jackson Ream? Is that correct for the other side? John put down on here, the fire marshals talked to him and got these agreements with them. to cut the locks if we need. We have a master key. We wouldn't cut the lock, we would cut the chain. That's a lot cheaper. But we do have access to those areas if we need. But then again, I guess it comes back that the city's required to have second access, and Stratton's Interstate Rock has given us that for that reason. But again, we just don't, you don't want to run everybody through there with all the construction going on and get somebody killed. Now what do we do? We got more problems there. But yeah, we're aware of those situations, and we're seeing them all over the place where we're getting these one way into one development and not a second way out.
Right, and that's
what
our,
we're trying to stop.
That's the other
Yeah, that's
item too.
that's business.
But the
item
north,
two.
the one he's got to,
Yeah, what's the fire code violation on the North Grand Canyon Parkway gate?
Turning the truck around.
Well,
what it is?
that street, that street there, if we're talking about the same street, it's it goes to a dead end, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
There's no cul-de-sac that should have a cul-de-sac.
There's no
So that's
cul-de-sac.
our biggest problem there, but we, that's one of our things pre-planning is we know we don't go in there, and if we pull in forward, our rules are no backing without a backer. So, we prefer not to have to back if we don't have to, but there's a lot of places in all the cities, not just Tokerville, that we run into that problem.
Right.
That's the same reason in some of the subdivisions in the past, you've seen when they do some of those streets that go up, and we've made them do a cul-de-sac, a temporary turning. And then now I've gone up there and seen sometimes they've put rocks in the road up there to block the road. So there's another violation there.
So on North Grand Parkway, the problem is you don't want to back up, you can't turn around.
Yeah, you don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So eventually, once that is rectified, once they do their next phase.
Yeah,
then
hopefully
that'll
that
be the
ties in.
requirements.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then I know the master plan, I think we talked about this probably back in 2020, is to actually have another road out back into Laverican.
yeah.
But I don't, right now
That's
you
the
got,
grand plan
yeah,
through
you got
interstate.
interstate rock that's got,
They're still hauling dirt
that's a
out.
lot of dirt in there, and I don't think they want to give that up yet.
No, they're not quite ready to develop
But
that.
hopefully that'll come soon. That's
And
a lot of our concerns is getting a truck in.
Right.
And then you have those Santa Ana winds
Right,
and you got a fire, and now you're trying to back a truck out of there.
yeah.
Yeah. And same with your garbage trucks, everybody, there's lots of people that don't like to
Back
back.
up.
A lot of liability.
Okay, so this is,
Lynn's got no, I think.
I think
Heath, did you want to come? I mean,
Spent a lot of time.
I know, we have spent a ton of time on it.
This development Trowbridge Estates was approved 3 months before I became the city attorney. But I worked with finalizing the actual development agreement and the amended development agreement on this. And I would tell you, it is my opinion, not your city attorney's opinion, but it's my opinion that in the development agreement, the developer at the time, who is not the current developer, the developer at the time, Casey Craig, his development company went under, bank took it back, owned it for a long time, turned around, and the current developer is the owner. So he doesn't even know the background to this, but in that development agreement, as consideration for getting the whole multi-phased development approved, was he agreed that he would provide in some limited improvements and allow access along the trails. There's mapping in that even shows, and on their plat shows Nephi's Twist. There doesn't need to be any sort of compensation. The compensation was given way back then.
With the agreement, yeah.
And I've always said, I appreciate what Jackson has done, but that road has been used historically under the 10-year use statute. It should be opened, and it was already, and to give you guys a little bit of background, the statement that they'll make that, they'll deal with that access when that phase is developed. I've been told multiple times by the current developer.
Nephi's Twist is not in a phase.
I know,
Right.
but he says, we will not ever, even if we hold out 2 lots, and allow that. And so the intent is to make that basically never be developed. And so, and they think that would somehow allow them to prolong this obligation that they've already committed to contractually in recorded instrument.
Is, how is the liability for a property owner if there's access granted through their property?
No hold harmless in the development.
The easements and the trails, it was called Trail Ridge Estate. That was the main.
Yeah,
entity that-
the original developer said this is for four-wheelers and side-by-sides.
Well, it's
Move
for-
here. Yeah, move here and take your side-by-side out into the Willy Wads.
It was an amenity to the people who bought in there.
Yeah.
But that it was public and it was a way that they could get on the public lands, but also the rest of the public. They
Could
were
get
going
on
to
there.
restrict those trails.
Is
Yeah,
is
the
part of that access also on the north side? Because there is the pump station. Is part of that the Water Conservancy easement also? And how does that affect what we're talking about?
They have access to that north gate.
They do.
Right.
And they have an easement.
But they have an easement. So would that,
It's an easement, right? And I don't know that there is an express, if like trail or recreation easement. That doesn't mean an easement. It's
Yeah.
simply conservancy districts and the city's right to go up there, but it's not our right to give it to the public for use.
so that would be my next question. So if the city decides that that's something that we want to move forward with and to get that open,
Then you would have
do we need to also get approval from the Water Conservancy because it's their easement also?
Their easement is a non-exclusive easement. So if we were to arrange and acquire an easement or purchase the land, we would purchase it subject to their non-exclusive easement. And then the city would own up through there, or we can negotiate with the property owner for a public easement.
Yeah.
So
we've talked in the past about maybe going up and fencing on both sides of the trail up to the off the private property and keep people from getting onto the private property through that section.
Well, I think the
I've
real,
also indicated to the council several times, even under the 10-year use statute, the question becomes, what was the scope of the historical use? We know that that has been used as a highway, as the state statute refers to it since 1858. But how was it utilized? And was it utilized for motorized continuously for a 10-year period? I don't know that, but it's been very clear that it's been hiking or pedestrian access, horse. And it's cycling, whether it's motorcycles, motorized, but I don't know. I've told the council in the past was that would be a little bit more of a questionable issue, whether a judge would say, I will adopt this, or I will declare and decree that this is a public highway to the extent that it was used historically. And he may say, but I'm not going to declare it a public highway for motorized vehicles. That's the one that seems to be a little bit later in time when the mayor bought this first motorcycle.
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, something we're not making any action tonight, but we need to just, do we want to?
give some direction.
Yeah, we need some direction. We want to move forward. I've been saying for years, I think that trail should be open. We should get access through there.
That's the only thing I'm worried about the access is the parking and like all that stuff. That's the only problem.
Right.
Other than that, the access, according to this document, it should be.
But do we open it, do we make it access for mountain biking, no motorized vehicles? I mean, e-bikes are okay, but I mean.
You're talking about the BLM. That's their job, not ours. We
I
just
know,
gotta
but to
the
get
access
through,
it.
to get through it. Well, it's true.
Yeah,
So,
but
So I think it was helpful to have a lot of the background that Heath provided. Obviously, he's been involved for a long time and he knows the history. I think the ultimate thing for the city to consider here is, yes, it may have this right, but is it in the city's interest to pursue this, to use taxpayer dollars to pursue this, right? He hasn't been willing to allow use on this road. So you'd probably have to sue him to get this right. Is that something, or at least, I mean, I'll back up a little bit. You'd probably try to work with him before getting to that. But is this something that the city's willing to spend time and money on, right?
my question there on the legal is, do we open the access saying you're in violation of your original agreement and make them sue us to close it?
That's something I'd have to think about. I'm not entirely sure on the spot how comfortable I am with walking onto somebody else's private property and cutting.
I understand. I hate taking, I don't want to take anybody's property rights, but.
Because the
in-
gate is located on his
It
private
is,
property, right?
but he has an agreement that says they will keep the trails open. That's the.
He does.
It shows Nephi's, historical Nephi trail across subdivision. And it indicates that they are granting an easement for these trails. That is a recorded document. In my mind, that's the equivalent of a recorded easement. I think we could go across the property and open it to allow free use and access without there being per se a trespass, but it is going to be a legal battle.
Right.
You know that,
Definitely.
'cause
And I don't want to sue them to get it, but if they sued the city and we can.
And arguably, it's not.
That's something I'd want to think on a little bit
Yeah.
more, but I mean, it's a possibility. There's a number of possibilities.
If there wasn't an agreement saying that we're going to keep the trails open from the original developer, then this would be a different story. But where that is in writing, and we have that, then I don't see why it's the city's, we should be making them open it, not asking them to open it.
Yeah, the question is it the city's prerogative to make them open it? Yeah.
And I've always said, you don't leave it up to to what may be the last phase. Any future land use application that they may apply for.
Be correct.
A condition that.
We did that last time and they pulled their application.
Oh, okay. Well, then don't have to develop any further.
Right. We've done that once.
Well, I think we should at least open the communications, reach out.
Right.
Reach out and just start.
That's a
formal
good place to
conversation.
start. Yeah.
And
We don't know.
And as an alternative, so on the other side of it is if we were to take the chain down on the city portion of the road and give them access that way, we could put a fence, or the developer could put a fence
Up on that.
on the road that goes down through their property to Nephi's Twist. So that could be blocked off. We could have, the people could have access. They'd go up to the tower and come down the backside. Now, I know when they come back, I don't know exactly where their property ends and BLM starts, but if they put another gate, fence, something, so that you can't go left, you can only go right up to the shooting range, that's another alternative. You would have to work with Phase 1 TRE HOA because it's their property theoretically, but that would be another alternative. I don't know if that's a viable option.
So their property is where the tank sits. That's that piece on the far left with the little
Is that right
triangle.
there?
So,
Everything.
so the tank is actually on phase one. It's
Phase
a,
one.
it's in the open space area.
Okay.
It's a, yeah.
It's undevelopable, so they called it open space so they could get tighter density.
Yeah, and so really, it's just that, but it's owned there
Right.
by the HOA of phases 1 and 2.
But the
or
city
1.
has an easement to get through there to get.
It's
to the
not,
tank.
it's not an easement, it's a dedicated roadway.
Dedicated road up to the tank.
Right there where you can see where it ends, right there.
Well, I can see that, but from there to the tank, it's
Yeah,
not.
then it's just an easement.
Okay.
So if you, I've got the
Right.
plat open on mine.
No, I understand that. I
But
just,
it just says, it's basically that, it's a easement. It says it's a water line easement.
So it sounds, if I would summarize, it sounds like direction from council would be to pursue like initial options as to what a path forward to protect recreational opportunities in this area.
Yes.
Would that,
Yeah, but let's do it by starting the communications with the current developer and, just see if it's going to be a hard no to start with, or see if they're willing to work with us on coming up with a solution to maybe get them to not come through that, get over to the south road or something, like get the people out of the neighborhood, make a turnaround up there at the end of that road and do exactly like Todd said, is chain off that thing to go down, comply with a couple of them, but I think that might come into the next conversation too, the next business item.
So just a couple things here. I'm looking, I think an amended contract that was dated 2013 was submitted as part of our exhibit here. Does that supersede the original agreements that we had with the previous owners?
Yes, it does, to the extent that it indicates that it.
And so some of the things in there, the only mention on the amended contract about Nephi's Twist is what our city manager displayed that shows that on phase 1, that
They'll make limited improvements.
they would make minor enhancements to Nephi's Twist where it passes through future phases if needed. That's the only mention of Nephi's Twist there. The other thing it does mention is that, and the plat should show, it's supposed to designate every trail that's going to be private and every one that's going to be public. And the private trails will be controlled by the HOA. They're turned over to the HOA. They have an exclusive right of regulation and use of all open spaces and private trails, which are owned by the HOA.
Completely agree. And the reason why there was a distinction between what was public and what was private, because it was acknowledged by the original developer. Nephi's Twist was public.
So that plat, when it identifies what's public and what's private, the public
So
trails,
good job of it, does it? It or future. ones.
I don't know if it does or not.
They don't have to make that declaration until after the trail's complete.
Correct.
And they have never built any trails, so they haven't made any declarations.
I think.
Right. But I'm trying to understand what is private and what is public.
That's not declared yet.
Well, the way that it was when we did the original development agreement, there was this, with the original developer, there was acknowledgement that they were gonna put some additional trails in there because this was kind of the whole
Right.
Trail Ridge Estates amenity selling marketing thing, but they acknowledged that like Nephi's Twist was a public. And so we had to come up with a way, and their legal counsel in drafting the development agreement came up with this concept of public and non-public. And the question, the idea being was who maintains the public and who maintains the private?
Mhm.
And there was supposed to be designation on the plat. I don't know that.
There was supposed to be, because the development agreement continually separates what the city's going to be responsible for and what the private trails are responsible for. They're separated.
Yeah, and we were dealing with the park and things like that, that was gonna be public and keep those.
So is there a plat that's attached to this amendment that identifies public and private trails?
There is, the notes are pretty blurry. I wasn't able to discern what they say.
Yeah, I can't see that. I
The
can't
plat's
see it on
there,
the
but
notes
it's
either.
not very
Well,
readable.
the map to the development agreement is one thing that I didn't, and this has been so many years ago, I may be off a little bit on this, but my understanding, or my remembrance was that they were going, each time they designated a phase that's shown as the overall map, that's when they would be in the plats, they would be designating public and private, and they didn't do a good job of it.
Yeah, phase one, the actual recorded plat for phase one. It shows the easements going up to the tank, but it doesn't show anything going off of,
Easements, does it?
it doesn't show any trail easements going anywhere other than around the park. No.
So we have a developer agreement that basically is very vague with respect to.
And I think
private
in
what's
the development agreement, in the actual documentations, there's maps in there that define it better. We have a copy that's a little bit clearer than the one you
Maybe
pull
we
off.
should take a look at that and see what Nephi's Trail is designated as.
Yeah,
If
so
it's
it's
a
not
public, if it's a
Designated as
public trail,
or
that's
private,
going to
it's
be.
just shown as Nephi's Twist.
twist in the development agreement.
Yeah.
That's where you go back and say it's historical, you claim it as public.
Public.
You claim it.
Okay.
Okay, we have direction on that one. Okay. Business item G2. We're moving fast tonight. Discussion regarding South Grand Canyon Parkway Gate.
Okay, here's the gate. There's the location. We had the map up earlier, but it's right at the south end of Grand Canyon Parkway as indicated. Here's a quick overview. City code is what I'm going to start with. No additional lots shall be created in an area that has 20 lots and only one access. So there are 5 remaining vacant developer-owned lots in phase 2 of Trail Ridge Estates. There are 85 homes currently served with a single bridge access point. There may be a long-term barrier to development of phase 3 that we've already mentioned. Interstate Rock kind of, so there may be some dependency there. We have already, Hurricane Valley has spoken to the solution to maintaining the key access if needed. I would say the one, I don't know if I have noted this, But the one public safety concern is when Hurricane Valley's fire is not present and there's an immediate evacuation necessary. I think that's kind of an obvious other public safety concern.
I have one of them keys.
One of the big ones.
Mine's got a battery on it. I don't have the strength anymore. I just,
Cut the chain on the lock.
Yeah. I did make note here that I did speak with the developer who is indifferent to the status of the gate of that south gate. They have no preference as to whether it's up or down. There are some conflicting safety concerns. Public safety is a priority on this gate. First is secondary access. Obviously, in the event of emergency, having a secondary access is important. But then the other side of this discussion is the unrestricted access to an open gravel pit where there's heavy machinery being operated and open to the public. There are some safety concerns there. There are two agreements that are typically discussed in these conversations. First is, again, that same amended development agreement from March of 2013, where the developer agrees to provide a paved second point of access prior to recording the final plat, prior to or in concurrence with recording phase 3. And the second part says, once graded in accordance with phasing, Laverque and Main Street access shall remain open at all times and shall not be gated. There is a secondary agreement to which the city is not a party to. That would be between the developer and runs with the land and Interstate Rock, wherein those two parties agree that to the same Laverque and Main Street access roadway easement. Essentially, Interstate Rock granted the easement to the developer at the time that, again, now runs with the land. And in that agreement, it says it shall remain open at all times and not gated to bar vehicle or pedestrian access through to Laverque and Main Street. And either party may post signage to indicate the roadway's emergency access only. So this is an agreement between two private parties that's recorded on that parcel. But again, it's up to those parties to enforce that agreement. That's, and the developer at this time is choosing to not.
And well, I can give you some.
Phase 3? Phase 3 hasn't been completed.
No, that does not reference phase 3.
So as far as on the Interstate Rock roadway, I've spoken to the president of Interstate Rock. They had that gate open for a long time. The biggest problem was on the weekend when nobody was there, they had a bunch of side-by-sides going in there and pretty much tearing up their gravel pit. So they closed the gate. That's why they closed the gate. That's the main reason.
I apologize. The agreement does list the 151st lot recorded.
Yeah, so it has to get to phase 3 before any of that even concurs or is enforced.
Yeah. So on the second gate is the south gate. Yeah, it's a safety problem both ways.
There's really nothing and according to this document, again, the development agreement, there's nothing we can do about that gate. I mean, we could open access to our right of way, but besides that, on the private side, we have no enforcement until phase number 3 is active.
I agree with Joey. Yeah, that's a good way to summarize it.
But, okay, but if you look at page 7, we're talking about roads, and then you go to page 8 under C, which I believe what we have on our SharePoint, and it says, once graded in accordance with the phasing of the property is set forth on the amended master plan, and then Golden Spike Road, Grand Canyon Boulevard, and Laverque and Main Street access.
But it hasn't been graded. It says
They
once
all are graded.
No, Laverque and Main Street is not graded. If you look at the alignment on that one, it goes right through the middle of the pit.
Right, but it's still a graded road.
No, it's not. It doesn't exist.
But Merlin, it's a graded road, is it
No,
not?
the
The
alignment.
road that comes into the pit, but I don't know about the Main Street. I don't know.
Well, your access,
Oh, I think you're right. I think
yeah,
it is
it
graded.
does, it is
It's a rough-
graded.
It's a rough graded road.
It's a rough graded road, correct. So you could drive a fire truck up it to the gate and come out the gate. So it is graded. So continuing here, it says, once graded, blah, 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 which are depicted on the amended master plan, the gate shall remain open at all times, shall not be blocked, gated, barricaded, or otherwise inhibited by any improvement or barrier which would bar the reasonable and covenant passage of pedestrians and vehicular traffic through and over the roadways as depicted on the master plan. So it doesn't say anything about emergency exit that I can find. It says that it's a secondary access, and it said it's supposed to be open and gated. Now, this gate didn't go up until July of 2023. Before, there was a gate there, but it was either propped open or it was closed but not locked.
Yeah. I
So
think you still have
it
to
wasn't
go.
locked until July of 2023.
And the reason is, as I stated,
And I agree with you, Mayor, that the reason you say it, but I would also disagree because they'll work inside, they don't gate it and they leave it wide open.
yeah, they don't.
So I
Well,
kind
that's
of.
what, that was their point. They said, we don't have this problem from the Laverican side. We open the Tokerville side
Okay,
and we have lots of side-by-sides
Okay.
in their pit.
okay.
If
And then,
you
well,
go back to that first sentence though,
yeah,
it says once graded in accordance with their phasing of their property,
right.
which takes you back to phase
Phase
3.
three.
They haven't put the utilities.
I'm missing the part where it says phase 3.
Page, or well, the phase 3 is in their phasing plan and what should be completed and the easements that have to be created.
No, I understand that part,
But when you say once graded in accordance with the phasing of the property.
right,
So
does
the
that
phase-
mean?
The third phase of the property is when this becomes an active, a mandatory active.
That's my question. Where does it
So I
specify
think-
third
okay.
phasing and not phasing number 1?
Yeah, sure. I'll opine on that.
Okay.
So
Emily,
as
you've got
far
it?
as secondary access goes, I think that's conditioned upon phase 3. But as far as just the roads remaining open, so yeah, I was at 7B. 7B's, the secondary access is conditioned upon phase 3. But as far as the roadways remaining open, I mean, I could see arguments either way. I think that it could read as though, you know, currently he has to keep that road open. I think we're in the same situation as we discussed with the North Gate. We have an agreement, which, you know, technically we should have the right to open that gate. The question is, what does the city want to do? Does the city have an interest in opening that gate and stepping in and fighting this fight?
Okay.
I think it really stems down to the same question.
Okay, so just so I can, for my own understanding, when you're reading B, it's saying provide a paved and improved second point of access to the project prior to or concurrent with the recording of the final plat for phase 3. If you go down to,
Well, that Todd right there, prior to or concurrent with the
Right.
recording of the phase 3.
right, I understand that. I totally agree with that paved road. But if I go down to see what I was reading, it doesn't say anything about phase 3. It just says the phasing of the property.
But you have to go back to the phase 1, 2, and 3 requirements.
Right.
Which is exactly what we read in 7, I believe.
Well,
That's how I
which
would
is-
look at it.
which is-
Yeah, I mean,
all the
to be
phasing,
honest
right,
with you,
Joe?
I'm getting up to speed, so I
Okay.
feel like I would need to look at the
Okay.
plats and just have a little more information before I have a full
Okay,
answer
so
for you.
let's put that, let's put
But
that.
I don't think it changes the issue here. The issue is is this something the city wants to step in and decide to
Okay.
take action on?
Since I heard that it was mentioned that this is Darren or Ben, I'm sorry, that somebody said that this is between the developer and Interstate Rock.
Yeah, two private.
Because this is an
The easement
agreement,
is.
but the city signed off of it, number one. And then the city signed off of it, number two, because we have an ordinance that says more than 20 homes, we're supposed to have two exits. And this is what the city allowed the developer and Interstate Rock to enter agreement. And so now we do not have unobstructed secondary access. And then Merlin, does this violate the fire code? Because with the 20 homes and we don't have two exits.
Well, fire code is like 30 homes.
30.
Okay, well,
30.
regardless,
That's why
regardless, there's 80 something in there, so.
And that's why we have the easements, and that's why we also have the agreements to go through the property.
They have the agreement.
But is this a fire life safety hazard? And is this something that needs to be immediately mitigated by the fire department and go out and cut the locks, cut the chain and open the gate up? Or is this something that the city needs to do?
Yeah, we're fine with it as long as we have our agreements with them to get through there. Like I said, we have the master key
Sure,
and
but none of the residents have a master key.
we'll be coming.
That gate is not be internet.
Yeah, it's the other, it's too narrow of a gate.
20 feet.
It's 18 or 15 or something, so that's
Right,
another.
15 feet wide.
But then again, it's not up to the fire department to make their own widths and stuff. I mean, we
No.
recommend them, but we're not gonna come in and grade them for you.
Sure.
That should just be part of, that should have been done way back then if they're gonna make that agreement.
Right.
It'd be up to the developer.
So if the city signed off on it, then somehow we should be responsible to make sure that the developer and Interstate Rock are adhering to what the development agreement states and what the city signed off on in order for them to continue with the building and the
You know, the
development.
the developer should be the one doing that with the permission of Interstate Rock. I mean, it's Interstate Rock.
The way I read it, I just don't see that any of that is enforceable by the city until phase 3 is.
Well, yeah, but.
That's just how I read it. I mean,
Right, would you?
At least the easement through, like,
Yeah.
we couldn't force the easement through Interstate Rock property until phase 3 is recorded.
So how would you respond to the fact that we have a city code that says you're supposed to have?
Well, so the city code says this, but this development agreement may have been written prior to that. I don't know, but the city signed this development agreement, and it wasn't us, obviously.
No, yeah.
And when I listened to Merlin say, hey, we have a key, we have agreements, we're okay with the secondary access.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
But probably that
But-
development agreement really should have said if we reach the 30 houses.
It should have said.
It should have,
Yeah.
What it really says is
Not the 85.
well, it says the
Or the
third
100
phase.
151.
Should have been after the
what
first
it
phase,
says.
it should have been.
The fire code says 30 units.
It does.
If over that, so it's
Yeah,
secondary
and the-
access.
And the fire department's saying they have a secondary access and they're okay with the way it is.
So,
That's what the
Given,
fire,
yeah, given the development agreement and given the history and the fact that the fire department is on board and they've been okay with this, I think it'd be an uphill battle to undo this now. It's essentially like they've been grandfathered in under these circumstances.
so if we have a catastrophic incident and the residents are unable to get out and the fire department is not able to go and unlock the gate because they're handling this catastrophic incident, then what do we tell our residents that 85 homes plus 2 cars or 3 cars or whatever are trying to pack up and get out across one 2-lane bridge? And if the incident impacts the bridge, and now I understand we are very resilient and can solve problems ourselves, but that's not the point. The point is there's a city code, there's fire code, and for some reason the city failed when this agreement was made. And we're choosing not to rectify the situation.
yeah, I'm torn on both ends. You know, do we not make the landowner on the north end open up the gate to give us access to a trail? But on the south end, do we mandatory make somebody open it up to give us access to a trail?
Well, there's a
You know,
there's a difference between a trail
No,
excuse me, and a secondary. or
Right, no, I
emergency
understand,
access.
I understand that. It's back to prior city council years and years and years ago, what they've let people get away with. So,
My recommendation would be, again, like we talked on the first one, communication.
yeah.
Better communicate and say.
And the biggest problem is,
Westfield Road, I mean,
yeah,
yeah, Westfield Road, we had to try to find some places for people to get if there was a fire. 'cause there's
yeah,
no
we had
way
some
out.
safety. Had
This way
some,
we have a way out, and if I'm not a fireman and I live there, I would just go through the fence with my truck, right?
Yeah.
If I need.
But that's cow poo. There isn't a 50-year-old lady that lives in that subdivision gonna drive her damn car through that gate.
Oh, if she was gonna die, she would drive through that gate.
I don't think so.
so,
Again, it's not the fire department's problem that the city back in 2013 didn't require the 30 homes.
yeah,
It is your problem though that it's not a 20-inch wide gate.
20 foot,
Fire marshal,
yeah.
of course, that.
So,
Read the code, bud.
So, I mean, it can also lead back to an enforcement issue. So if the gate was opened and the signage said emergency access only,
Historic road, stop everybody but the.
that would stop anybody from going down the road unless it's an emergency. That would take enforcement from Laverton Police, and that would take
Sheriff.
the sheriff, and also Interstate Rock would have to determine what kind of enforcement they want to do as far as their property, but that would at least leave the road open for emergency.
And that's
We're
something I
calling it
can,
an emergency.
I can take that to Interstate and say, hey, if we put signs up emergency only and
They
if
have
people
it
are
up
out there, well,
Yeah.
and open the gate
Yeah.
and say, if somebody's on here, you can call the cops, the sheriff's department and prosecute. That's the
That might be a
question.
happy medium, I don't know, but
Well, if they
that's
stay on
another.
the road, they're all right. It's just when they go off the road. and down-
Well, the problem is if they're on the road and there's a dump truck or a loader or
but see,
something barreling
yeah.
through there, that's not.
But that's kind of a gray area too, because if you think about it, that road that goes down is just a road. It goes down through if you're coming from the Tokerville side, it's a dirt gravel road. When you get down to the bottom, on one side, they're doing some work. On the other side of the road, they're doing some work. But it's away from the road, so you've got access to drive through and come out on the Laverton side as long as you're watching for dump
Right.
trucks and everything else coming by.
I don't
So.
think you'll have dump trucks on that main road. They'll be all in.
No, they're down
Yeah,
in the
and
pit.
they're not. They're on
They're in the
side.
pit.
So they're in the pit or on the other side where they got the water tank and dirt. So
Right.
you're going down the middle there. How much are you really impacting their operation anyway?
Yeah.
And plus, they've got their own trucks driving in and out
They do.
from the Laverton side.
They do.
So, I mean, that's another consideration.
What if the loader runs over the car driving down through there?
That's
Interstate gets
that's
sued.
interstates. That's their concern.
Yeah,
And then on the
sure.
weekends, you've got side by sides or whatever in there
But it-
running wild. So,
Do they want to fence it off?
well, they have a gate.
Do
They have a
You
gate
know.
and we're talking about bringing down the gate. I guess,
Yeah.
I mean, you guys bring up a valid concern. So it's just something to think of when you pick this
Right.
fight. Like Interstate's going to push back because from their perspective, if they're just allowing people to come onto that property, it's a significant liability concern for them. So I would expect it to be an uphill battle if you go remove that gate.
I will speak with Interstate Rock about maybe like you, Scott, you put a little fence on the south side of the road for a little ways to keep them from going into the pit. So there's possible ways there. So,
We could start, I mean, as we suggested with the north end, just talking to Interstate
Yeah,
and
I
seeing
can-
where there's any give at all. I mean, we might as well start there if we're going to start there.
I'll
with the north
grab
end.
some of I'll just drive out there with a couple of the Interstate guys and just have a chat. That's the first thing we'll do. So, and see what their thoughts are. So,
And then we'll come back and
Yep.
report and put it on the agenda again.
yep.
Okay.
Okay. We're up to item 3. This one's easy. Item G3, discuss with possible action accepting a donation from the 2024 Turkey Trails, Tokerville Trails Turkey Trot and restricting funds as a park donation. So this money has to go to the parks. Emily, do you have a grand total on this?
I think it was about $1,500.
Yep, just under 1,500.
About 1,500, yeah.
Very good.
I would go ahead and move that the city accept that donation and utilize it for parks only.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? This is dealing with money, so I'm gonna have a real call vote. Chuck, on your end?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right.
Thank them for.
Oh, yeah, they do a great job every year. All right, we are gonna move on to item G4, discuss the possible action on Firelight MPDO modification application submitted by Firelight Development Incorporated.
Okay, for the sake of time, I'll give a brief introduction, then we can open it up to your discussion. So we did receive this application to modify the MPDO last week. The agreement itself gives the council 45 days to make that decision. So our deadline is the 21st of February. Just want to make that clear. An overview of kind of the plan for today is to determine if the changes are material or not. If they are non-material, then it's my understanding that no additional action is required by city council, that the developer would just submit an updated plan to the city. If they are deemed material, then the plan will follow the process of a traditional zone change. So public hearing, recommendation from Planning Commission, and then back to City Council for a decision.
And we have to have all that done by the 21st?
No,
We
you just have to
to-
deem it
okay.
material or not by the
Perfect.
21st.
What's the definition of material and non-material?
So material would be anything that increases the maximum residential density, commercial density, or development area, adds additional land uses, or further modifies the city's standards and specs. It leaves non-material, in my opinion, open a little bit, but it also does say that it would change the location of various development uses and densities between the planning areas. That would be considered non-material. So as you've seen probably on the application, the changes proposed include clarifying lot sizes, building sizes, building height, setbacks, and building distances for residential land uses of the single-family homes and twin homes or townhomes. Section 11 of the development agreement does include zero lot line homes, patio homes, duplexes, etc., as permitted uses for the general neighborhoods within the residential planning areas. Within the development agreement, sections 12C through H give the standards of building sizes, setbacks, building heights, etc., but only as they apply to the active adult neighborhoods within those residential planning areas. So as I understand it, this application is just to clarify for those other uses which aren't already defined within the development agreement.
Okay.
Is there a difference between a twin home and a duplex?
I think, no.
Just curious, because it says twin homes, and she mentioned duplexes.
Zero separation.
There's triplexes in there as well, condominiums, any type of cluster home it calls out as a permitted use.
Okay. Adam, you want to come up? And I know you've got a few things as you're from Firelight. So let's, oh, you got a mic?
Hi, I'm Adam Allen. I'm with American Consulting and Engineering. I've been hired by the gentleman from Firelight to help them with their engineering and such moving forward in the all the non-active adult phases for now. And as we started getting into this, we started looking at what we could do, what that said we could do in the development agreement, but those things weren't clarified as to how exactly we were going to do them, right? There wasn't those clarifications on the townhomes, their setbacks and things like that. So that's why, as we got with staff, we brought it forward to try to define that, so that way they can move forward and we can move forward with designing these future phases.
Darren, what's your, you looked at this, I know you guys are staff.
Yeah, as far, there's a few changes that I think we need to make where it makes reference to the the residential densities there, such as R12, R10, R8. It needs to be just a little bit different verbiage there. I think they kind of missed a little bit on that because we don't, the underlying zone is the R120, which gives them everything. It gives them their densities.
Yeah.
And then obviously the base densities or the bonus densities come into play for parks and trails and things such as that.
Yeah.
As you look at these 3 pages, essentially, it's given us that type of clarification of what we need. And like Adam was talking about there, is that it'll give us the clarification of what the setbacks need to be that are outside the active adult areas. But at the same time, we definitely want to make sure that we specifically apply this to planning areas, much like the active adult is. The active adult calls out different areas where it's going to be put or where it's going to be placed. And so those setbacks and things would apply to those. So there's maybe a little tweaks that we need to make on this, but
so we're not trying to make this blanket the whole development.
The whole PDO, because there are certain areas that maybe Firelight might want something else.
Right.
We might want to make it to whatever Adam is helping do with different types with a different planning area. Or do you want to do
yeah,
it?
that's-
Or do you, that's
right.
the question. Or do you just want to blanket the whole PDO with these setbacks, excluding the active adults?
So if it doesn't specify the setbacks, then they have to go back to Tocqueville city standards.
Correct.
Okay.
That's the way I understand
Yeah,
it.
that's kind of how I understand it too. so.
Because, yeah, we would, without this, we would just go to what our standards and specs are.
Okay. All right. Guys, what do you have questions? And is this, so the main question before we get, 20 minutes into the discussion here, is this considered, what was the words?
Is
Not-
this considered a material change
yes,
and council
material
has
change.
45 days to make that determination?
So is it a material change or a non-material change? That's the question we need to talk about tonight. Do we move forward on changing this non-material and they don't have to do a zone change, or is this a bigger?
Well, they don't have to do a zone change.
It's a
That's-
material.
Yeah, but I do believe that it is a material change.
Yes.
Basically because it says standards, and what they're asking us to change is the standards of lot sizes. So in my opinion, I believe this is a material change just for that reason alone, is we're changing standards and lot sizes. The other thing about it is on their submission, to go back to Darren's, we don't have an R18. So if you're outside of the was it the adult activity?
Active adult areas, yes.
Basically, when they submit that submission, they're going to fall back to our city standards, which we don't have R18 or R110.
We don't,
To give
no.
them setbacks.
Correct.
So
And what this would do is it would either clarify it further for this, but there again, it's up to you guys whether you say that it's substantial or
The
not.
issue of material or non-material is, there's a definition or a limitation on what is absolutely material. And that has to do, it talks about adding maximum commercial density, maximum residential density, or adds other land uses or further modifies the city's standards and specifications. What Firelight is asking is to not modify standards and specifications. It's to create standards and specifications basically for products that don't exist right now, or zones or that don't exist, because obviously throughout the development agreement, throughout the MPDO plan, it shows a maximum residential development allowed, and you can't, with keeping the open space that is required of the developer and all the other things, you can't, the development agreement even talks about multifamily uses and things like that. So the question is, we're not asking for a modification of our standards and specifications. When I say ours, I
right.
feel
You're asking to
too much
modify.
used to, when I say ours, I'm
Right,
referring to
right.
the
Okay.
built down term.
Yeah, that's what I was going to clarify.
We're not asking you to modify the city's standards and specifications. We're asking to create some basic standards and specifications, because staff is asking us, well, what do I look at this as? I don't know what should setbacks be on a duplex or a fourplex or something like that. And they need
we've
to
had
be
this.
creative.
We've had this conversation in depth before. Is that you take the active adult community, and you guys have submitted with the initial application and gone through the process of applying it. Smaller lot sizes, setbacks, front, back, side, left, whatever.
We did, we did that.
You did that.
Specifically for the active adult,
that,
because
yeah.
we knew exactly the product that we
And
wanted
so
to.
anything that fell
And that
outside
was-
of that active adult community would fall back to with the same as the uses. You take all the uses, they all blanket the MPDO. You take all the residential, you take all the multifamily, they all blanket the MPDO. You can put them wherever you want, however you want. But I still believe that outside of taking them standards of all them zones, all them R1s and MUs or whatever, you're altering them enough that we need to specify where they go. So if you want to do, I can't remember what they're referred to as building zones or
Planning
areas.
Well, densities are
So densities, they have
identified
nothing
in
to
the
do with it with
MPDO
me.
plan in specific residential planning areas within fire.
And the densities are great. You can use the densities however you'd like to. But we're not changing densities. We're changing city standards because we don't have city standards.
Yeah, we're changing or adding them.
You're asking us to add them
add.
specifically to.
Actually,
Zoning standards.
we're asking you to add zoning standards to the MPDO plan. That's all that we're asking for. It doesn't apply to anywhere else within the city. It is, how do we get this number of equivalent dwelling units? ERUs,
Yeah, whatever you want to call it, yeah.
That we've been approved for.
that we've been approved for, and accomplish that with all of the set aside open space and parks and those types of things. And it was always contemplated that there were going to be these types of uses that we don't have zones for.
Yeah.
And so we're simply asking, as to our MPDO plan, not anybody else's and not to the city's standards, can we draw up a set and then we have to abide by them going forward? And the staff has the ability to look at those standards and say, do they comply? And they're as you've seen, they look a lot like what we embedded right into the MPDO plan and the development agreement for the active adult portion.
Yeah.
In that active portion of it, it defines it as unique, meaning it was an exception to what we normally would have approved.
Yeah.
So,
Was it unique in that, I don't remember.
well, the development agreement shows and describes it as being unique to the active senior community area, okay? It described that area. In other words, from my perspective, is we kind of made an exception to allow those setbacks to be put in the active 50-55 category. And now you're looking to have these setbacks identical to what the active community is throughout the entire development.
No, actually, in some places, they're a little bit different. Yeah, quite a bit, a lot different. So
do we need to
when I compare the active and what you're proposing, they're identical with the setbacks, 5 foot on each side, 10 foot.
Well,
There's some similarities.
there's definitely some similarities when there's only so many sizes of rear and side setbacks that there can be, but it's like lot sizes and, it's uses, it's stacked EDUs and things like that, that we've got to deal with because it was always understood that this is coming, but we're now trying to figure out how to implement it.
Yeah.
And simply, in our opinion, we're doing it at the request to give clarity and guidance to the city, how you will evaluate future plats or site plans for different types of.
Some of the reason and a lot of the discussions we had for the 30% bonus was specifically tailored to this exact conversation. I knew this conversation was going to come back. And we came back to that same thing. Anything outside of that adult activity or community falls back to city standards. That's the only protection the city has to maintain some resemblance of Tokerville.
Then we can't build.
You can. You guys have ERUs, however you want to do them, and you can use them. But when you take in, you can convert residential to commercial ERUs, right? So
Joey.
that's the conversation I
would agree with you that you were one who was always discussing that. And maybe it was forethought, but as this was drafted, I want to read to you a section of the development agreement. And this is section, let's see, it's going to be 8C. It's the discussion on residential planning areas and density.
What page?
8C. And for some reason, on the recorded document, it's page 19, but it might be page 18 or something otherwise. But it says in there, about halfway down, the various RPAs have been designed for planning purposes, including sizing and location of public facilities, as well as efficiencies of scale and preservation of property values. This is the important sentence. It is intended by the parties that there will be a level of flexibility in the final location, size, and intensity of residential uses within the RPAs. Accordingly, the non-material modification boundaries, intensity, and use and size of RPA may be accomplished by the developer through the modification application process prescribed. So we're coming to you And we're asking if there is intended to be maximum flexibility here, we are asking you to make a determination that some additional setback and sizing standards and be
So,
allowed to be
I
added
agree
to our
with that.
development plan.
I agree with that, but specifically going back to the adult active. So why would you submit an application to change all of them in there and not submit another one for another parcel? So I agree, like, yeah, let's work together, but I do believe that you do need to make a submission to change the MPDO in them areas and identify the areas you want to do it. It shouldn't be carte blanche to fall through the whole thing. It should be like, okay, as you're doing, let's make the submission. And
so are you suggesting that you have separate?
I'm suggesting you need to do a revision to the MPDO for specific sites, exactly like you did with the adult active community. I work with you guys.
It doesn't
no
seem
problem.
like maximum flexibility, nor does it.
That's
nor does it-
flexibility to save.
The term
the-
says level of flexibility, not maximum flexibility.
I know, but if you want to read in the purposes and the intent of the MPDO plan and why it was adopted and approved in the development agreement, it says so that this can be developed with flexibility based on market conditions and things. And I think to answer your question, we did not fully know, nor would we know throughout the 20-year planning horizon of this project, what the market is going to ask for.
We agree with that, but that's why you have to make the submission to point to the
I
areas.
know.
Like the market now is saying, let's build here, and these are the setbacks we want for this area. But you can't take the whole project.
Well, but my question would be, if we're talking about what would be the setbacks for duplexes, wouldn't that be the same standard throughout anywhere in Firelight? Or why would you want to tinker with it? We're just suggesting a uniform.
Maybe it gives in reverse. Maybe you guys you build enough ERUs out that you don't, now you're going to come back to us and say, hey, we got all this extra land now. We got another 300 acres that's buildable. We're already at our max density. We want to improve our, so it can go either direction on both sides of this aisle. And that's the protections that
We're
Tocqueville
kind of
City.
stuck with that. If we go with these densities and it leaves 300 acres left, we're going to have to do estate lots and, we chose that because we hunted down that path.
We went down that path to get you guys the maximum 30% density, right? And it's not the city's job to figure where you're going to put your density and how you're going to get your densities.
We're
Right?
simply trying to ask for a standard that the city can follow.
That there's an obligation to make it so.
Oh, I think it's intended, but that's my interpretation, that these things would have to be dealt with. And unless we are changing the number of ERUs, the geographical boundaries.
Or the standards.
Or modify standards, not creating new standards, modifying standards. That's the key word there.
Well, Heath, this doesn't reference the setbacks at all in this paragraph that you're reading. It doesn't really.
But
and
it
the
says.
setbacks were changed for the adult community only. Now, this is a Firelight development description. And this says here, multi-use commercial, which includes apartments and multifamily. These are minimum standards, right, in this thing that Firelight submitted to us. And those standards are much higher than what you're proposing right now.
We're proposing
An amendment to that.
standard.
Well, yeah, do a formal amendment and come through and show us the areas you want to do it in. That's what I think it's a bigger material change to submit and make an amendment to that to currently reflect it. I don't think we need to change the development agreement. I think you need to make an amendment to that.
And we're not asking for to the development agreement,
Yeah.
just the plan.
Exactly. I think it requires an amendment for all future questions, for staff to come through and review it and check, okay, this one might be different. You might want really tight density like R18 for the
But
section.
Joey, if you listen to what you're saying, hey, we want to look at every development standard on each and every project or development on a case-by-case
No,
basis.
no, I'm not. I'm saying,
Well, then why can't we set a standard that would apply to all of these different products that we've been able to identify so that when we go to develop in one of those residential planning areas that allow it, that we don't have to go, it seems to me like the city wants to scrutinize what you've already given and asking for, hey, we may want it a little more tight here, a little wider here. We may want bigger. And isn't that the developer's decision?
it's 100% your guys'
Not the
decision.
city's decision. City's decided how much density could be out there and what kind of uses could be out there.
But Heath, you're asking for modifications. What are your modifications? Do you want to
No,
shrink?
He's not.
Do you want to shrink setbacks?
I'm not asking to modify your existing
Addendum.
standards and specifications. We're simply asking you to, within our plan, adopt some new standards and specifications that allow for some of these multifamily or mixed-use situations.
Like 5-foot offsets and things like that?
Yeah.
No, you got to be crazy. A 5-foot offset means there's 10 feet between each house. You take your 2-foot eaves. What's that give you? That gives you a giant fire hazard, congestion. I mean, you
Well-
can't even open your door 3 feet without them hitting their block wall. It's too tight.
Wayne,
What you're
Wayne,
asking
go out to
for is too
Sand
tight.
Hollow or one of these places. What if we went 3
We're not
stories
Sand Hollow.
high?
We're Tokerville. We have little standards of living here in a different way. We don't want to be clustered so tight that the densities are so much.
That's what we already are doing.
You want to,
So
you,
active adult,
you want to shrink them down to get more in there.
You have
No,
the,
no, we don't. We do not want.
Well,
to
if you
shrink them
modify
down to get more.
setbacks, that's exactly what, if you want us to
No.
change that and make it different for you, then that's tightening everything
We are
up.
not, we are not asking for increase in density. Absolutely not. We are asking,
that's that really like.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't be able to achieve it with an MPDO. They already have the max density for the parcels.
We're just trying to use our density and we need smaller products to do that.
we have to.
You need smaller. You need
I-
smaller sizes to put
It
your
was
density
always
in.
contemplated that.
So how do you get the smaller sizes to put your density in there?
It's in that proposal.
We proposed a set of plan
That's these-
guidelines that are going to be an augment to our plan. It's not creating new standards for the entire city. It's just an augment to our plan.
A side setback of 5 foot.
They're already doing it in
They're
their,
already doing it in a
Well,
five.
that's what he just said he wants.
well, they're already doing that.
They have
In
approval
their
in their adult
adult
community to do
to
most
do
of
that.
this right here, but they're asking us to blanket.
That's just
it.
foolish.
Go out to Sun River, it looks beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Till you have a fire and 100-mile-an-hour winds, it sweeps through everything. You know, woof.
We don't have wind here.
We don't have wind here, right?
You should check it out, it's pretty.
It is pretty, but it's Sun River. It's not Tokerville.
Has the council received an opinion from legal counsel whether they think it is?
Legal
material?
counsel's had this a few days. We have 45 days to make a decision, so council does not need to make a decision on this today. We can analyze this further. In fact, we'd probably advise that we analyze this further and take a little bit more time to answer questions that go to whether this will change the density or whether this will change the plans and specifications of the city. We would recommend doing so.
Yeah, I saw in the staff recommendation at the bottom that it recommends that we table it.
Right.
We
Yeah, we just need a good,
We just wanted to explain why we think it's
Exactly.
immaterial.
right.
And we think that it is because we're not adding uses, we're not adding density. We're simply trying to call out standards that the city doesn't currently have because they don't have anything like Firelight, so that your staff knows how to evaluate.
Yeah, some
subsequent land
guidance.
use applications. So,
Okay.
thanks.
All right. Thank you, Heath. Okay, so I need
Let's
a
get
motion
to, yeah. go ahead.
to table.
I make a motion, that we table this item to allow for further legal review and staff research.
Is this item number 4?
Yep.
Item number 4, sorry.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor?
Aye.
You don't want to table it? Wayne? Or who was that? Oh, it was you? Okay, okay. No, that's good. I need to know.
Table it.
All right, Joey. All right, item G5, discuss the possible action on ordinance 2025, amending Title 1 of the Tocqueville City Code by creating chapters 11 and 12, establishing a procurement ordinance. Ben?
Yeah, all right. So the city currently has a procurement policy in place that kind of was adopted administratively, was not adopted by ordinance by the city council. However, state code requires that the city adopt a procurement policy by ordinance or use the state's procurement policy. I have read through the state procurement policy. It is less desirable. It is a very bulky process for procurement. This was surprising as I came to Tokerville that we didn't have a codified purchasing policy. So basically, this is just kind of formalizing a purchasing policy for the city. I have a few kind of just high level notes here that I'll go over, and then we'll let Kayla kind of make her notes. The city manager in this case is designated as what would otherwise be a purchasing agent. So that's just kind of the oversight for the purchasing process. This procurement policy works in conjunction. I wanted to clarify this. A procurement policy works in conjunction with the city budget. The city can't buy anything that's not already budgeted for. So I just wanted to make that clear. It just tells us how we purchase something. At what level, at what threshold do we have to get 3 quotes? At what threshold do we have to put it out to bid? So we have 3 tiers here that we're proposing. Less than $5,000. Essentially, we're just seeking the best value. We're trying to save the city money. Between $5,000 and $50,000, we go out and get 3 quotes. Over $50,000, the procurement policy outlines a formal bid process. So that's where this is where we use the state's assistance. We post it on SciQuest, which is a statewide procurement site. We go out and solicit bids from possible vendors, and we try to get essentially the maximum number of bids possible. And then there's a closing date. You guys have been through that through the bid process, I'm sure. There are a couple exceptions. I wanted to call these out because these are very important. These are where we bypass our own procurement policy. Again, it's important to have these exceptions because there's situations where it just doesn't work to have some of these barriers to purchasing. So the first of which is obvious. If we're doing our own work, even if it's $60,000 worth of work, we don't have to put it out to bid. We don't have to bid against ourselves. Professional services are awarded based on price and qualifications. So it's important to note here that a lot of times for attorney services or audit services or banking services, you are awarding not necessarily primarily based on cost. It could be a factor in the conversation, but you're awarding a contract based on qualifications primarily. Sole source contracts, these are when there aren't multiple providers in the area that could reasonably provide something. A lot of times this is like with very specific equipment. Only the manufacturer can work on a certain piece of equipment. Cooperative agreements, there are a lot of times cities use state contracts. So the State Department of Purchasing is actually, I think they have like 40 employees who work on acquiring state contracts. So they're always trying to get the best value for things. And this would be a situation where we could bypass the normal procurement process in order to acquire something. There is a procurement exception for the discretion of city council. You just have to have a rational basis for bypassing your own policy here. And then there's the final situation, in which is an emergency situation. And there are, it's the life, safety, those situations where we have to go out and say contract with someone or buy something in order to protect life and property. In that case, the department head and city manager work in conjunction. We make a written determination and notify the city council as soon as possible. And then that would be an agenda item in the next city council meeting that is ratified.
Is the mayor included on that emergency?
Yeah, I mean, not formally. That's not how it's written into the procurement policy. Could do that. You have the discretion to do that. But that's not how it's written in.
So these are exceptions that we've basically gone that are not included in the state policy that you showed. But you'd like to have them incorporated in the city procurement.
Yeah, so we essentially develop our own ordinance that is
And
ours.
you want this included in it?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. And these aren't included in the state?
As far as the state exceptions, there are exceptions, but they definitely vary from, I can't even state what they are off the top of my head because the state entities are just so different from municipal entities. They're
The
operating
state
on a different
procurement
scale.
code is very complex. There's a lot to it. So essentially the purpose in adopting an ordinance such as this is to exempt the city from having to comply with the state's requirements, to simplify things.
Real quick, Dean, I know you got a lot of interest with this. What do you got?
Typically, in any emergency, and you're correct, you need a policy in place. The mayor can announce an emergency immediately, which opens up all the emergency things that then you can go in and do that. And you need to have that because it can be within minutes that you have to have an emergency. And usually the mayor will call you or you call him, and then you just do the paperwork.
Yeah, emergency declarations are kind of outside of the scope of procurement exceptions, but definitely are play into that. This is a situation where, actually, I will have to rephrase what I said. Even so, JD gets called out to something at 2:00 in the morning, and there is an emergency that exceeds $5,000 that he has to buy. He doesn't have to have my consent. He doesn't have to have the mayor's consent. He, as a department head, can make that determination if I'm not picking up my phone. You know.
Yeah.
So that is, a department head can actually make that decision, and then he works with me to develop the written determination and justification for that.
So the mayor didn't have to be on that list? He just automatically?
I mean, we'd certainly be calling the mayor. In an emergency situation, the council is going to be aware of the situation, but there could be a situation where it's the time of day just doesn't make sense to be notifying everybody. And you're just not working through your formal procedures then at that point, right? It's not that we're trying to bypass anything. It's just that we can't get a public meeting together soon enough, right? Because emergency meetings still require a few hours notice in order to hold them.
I would move that we go ahead and approve.
Yeah, you want to jump in?
Question. I think tier 2 is too high. And the reason I think that is because you're just going to get written quotes. And written quotes don't come with any guarantees who they're from. You send somebody to solicit out and get 3 written quotes. The person that's given them, do they talk to the other bidders? That's too high and it's not fair because I've seen this happen many times where you just get these written quotes, somebody will go gather them, and the person that you really like or this council member likes or whatever you like gets the bid because he kind of knows. This happens a lot. So I think that threshold is
No, he wants to go less than 50,000. If it's more than, he wants to take that 50,000, bring it down to, I don't know.
It just, to me, that puts people in the city, any of us or any involved in possible, I'm not going to say collusion, but puts you in a really bad spot because you're just going to go get somebody that you know and go get a bid from him, and I know this guy. But this bid isn't a guaranteed bid, isn't nothing. Typically, I see that around $25,000 as your max before you bid things out.
Yeah, I've seen that at 25,000 with other municipalities as well. The challenge that you see with the formal bid process between $25,000 and $50,000, a lot of times you have a bid package. You have a bid package that takes a lot of time to put together. It takes, you're open for weeks. You're reviewing it. You have typically a purchasing committee that is reviewing it. I would have no problem adjusting that threshold down. It simply is another barrier. And sometimes people won't respond because of the size of the work. Whatever the council feels comfortable with, I'd be open to.
Heath, I saw your hand up, Heath.
Wayne, you're spot on. 25 used to kind of be that.
Yeah, it did.
threshold, but the state procurement code raised the public bidding limit to $100,000. And so when that kind of moved, 50,000 became the new
25
was 50,000
inflation.
But I'm just simply telling
nothing,
you.
exactly.
I've seen that a lot of recent and.
Well, that's just my reason why, because I can see that possibly happening.
And at 50,000 is a lot of money.
You know?
50,000 is a lot of money, but then you're back to anything over 25,000, you're doing the whole bid thing and how much, the procurement, you got to bid everything out, formal bids, and then like Ben was saying, you might spend $1,500, $2,000 in
More than that.
labor just in putting the stuff together, so I can see both sides, absolutely. So, yeah, 25 doesn't buy what it used to.
No,
That's the problem. So,
no, anything in that price range is pretty minimal anyway.
Yeah.
You're not really, it's not a big job you're doing anyway. I don't know why we couldn't produce the documents ourselves and send it out.
Yeah, we would be producing documents internally typically,
Yeah.
unless it's a huge construction
but then we're
project,
gonna, and that's gonna be way over 50,000.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
yeah.
It's just up to you guys. I mean.
Oh, yeah, no, I can see both sides of it. I really can. 25 grand, like I said, used to be money, but nowadays, I mean, that's,
4 years ago.
yeah.
Still a lot of money.
It's still a lot of money. It is. It is.
I'll wrap up my summary here. So the procurement is the proposed chapter 11. Proposed chapter 12 is surplus property. So it's basically when we have property that we're disposing of, what is the process for that? So there's essentially two sections here. There's real property and personal property. Real property being land. Real property has to be declared surplus by city council. So essentially it's a formal action of city council that you're voting on. And then that can be disposed of in any of the traditional ways. I listed them out, but we don't need to read them. You can sell it, you can auction it, you can do anything. And then personal property is proposed to be determined by city manager. And then it's sold in an auction or sealed bid. And here, one of the qualifications is that no elected or appointed official or employee may participate in the process. So for obvious reasons.
Who bought the wagon?
What would you define as
Given,
personal property?
I think it was given to,
What would you define personal property as?
that was Bringhurst and I think Chuck ended up with it.
I mean, typically vehicles is what you're seeing in personal property. That's the most common thing that you're disposing of as a city.
The only other thing I might say is sometimes I like that it's an administrative decision of city manager on personal property up to, I see some city procurement codes say up to $25,000, because if you're getting rid of vehicles and stuff like that, older pieces of equipment, at some point in time, some cities limit their administrative staff's ability to just say, yeah, this is surplus, we're gonna sell it.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And that's not written in, so motion
Okay
could
with
include that.
recommendation?
What's that?
Are you okay with that comment?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, some threshold on real property market value.
Kayla, what do you got?
Before we close this up, so in exempting ourselves from the state code, there's some protections that we lose. And then obviously there's some benefits, like we don't have to follow every single rule that might be really burdensome for a small municipality. So I just went through the procurement code and just highlighted some sections that the city might want to consider incorporating into its own procurement code. If not now, then maybe later. So I'll just read through these. Don't glaze over yet. Okay. So just for construction bonds, the state procurement code requires 100% performance bond and 100% payment bond. We don't have any such requirement in our procurement ordinance. It might be something that the council wants to consider.
You definitely need that.
Yeah.
Because contractors do not have the right, if they don't get paid, to put a lien on city property. So there better be a bond for which usually second tier suppliers and subcontractors don't get themselves burned, or they're never going to want to do work on city jobs in Tocqueville.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think that's probably one of the most important parts of the state procurement code. Let's see, just a duty to report unlawful conduct. So like bid rigging, steering contracts to favored vendors, things like that. Drug and alcohol testing requirements, something about contract extensions. So just a few ways that we could bolster like the current procurement policy or procurement ordinance that we're proposing for the city. If you want, we can work those things in now and table it, or we can adopt and then amend later.
I will say this isn't before council because we have a pending purchasing
Deadline, right.
action. Yep.
Yeah.
There's no no urgency on this.
Yeah, I like some of those.
Okay, our recommendation would be to add some of these items just so that we at least ensure we have most of the protections that are in the procurement.
And then let's
code that apply.
think about Wayne's, comment, 25 grand, still a lot of money. So,
A lot of money, but it's not a lot of money, but there's a lot of people in the $25,000 to $50,000 range. It's a different type of a contract. It's not a contract like, it's somebody, you're doing something small.
well, and it says in there about steering and trying to get your friends the job too, so that's.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. So that could be part of it, so yeah, I'm good with it.
We could just put it all on there and he has to solicit the bids and get them.
Well, I think what Kayla said about some of the anti-collusion requirements, adding those, feathering those into your procurement.
Yeah, I think it's a great.
I think it's important, yeah.
Back when we created the policy, you only had to have it by policy, you didn't have to
Have it by ordinance.
So, and we didn't have a city manager, so it was like the mayor could.
Yeah, the mayor could do a lot of,
Or council members who were over certain departments.
could do, they were like a department head at the
A lot
time.
of things
so.
changed since that policy.
Joey, what was that?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to table business item F or G5 for, so we can add them items in as previously discussed.
I have a motion, a second, any further
I
discussion?
got one question for
Yes.
Kayla. What was the drug alcohol? How's that refer?
It required drug and alcohol testing for anyone that was essentially going to be employed pursuant to one of these
Employees on
contracts.
Construction projects.
Exactly.
Things like that, or if we third-party contract, like, say the city wanted to hire out all the landscape maintenance to a third party, we have the right to write into the contract that we have the ability to do.
Random drug and alcohol tests.
Okay. Like that, a resident says, hey, this guy who's mowing lawns, looks like he was.
Okay.
Hey, wait a minute.
Okay.
So we'll
So-
put that in there.
Whoa.
Oh, boy.
You got into a bad area there. So you're saying that the city, you hire somebody for a job under 50,000 doing something, you want to have the right to go drug test them?
No, I think that would be in.
Any over 50,000 too, it could be whatever.
You could decide what it
Contractor
applies to,
It
yeah.
has to have a safety program.
Right.
In our,
Discretion to write it into any contract.
Yeah, we can write it into any contract.
the
Not saying it's
contractor
gonna
has to
happen.
drug test his people, not the city.
Yeah, well,
Well, actually,
Would that
the,
Probably the best way to phrase it would be something like in the city's discretion, it may require drug and alcohol testing
Yeah.
for
require it, we don't have to do it.
any of the contracts identified herein or something like
Contractors
that.
do it and have evidence of it.
Yeah,
Because we can't, you can't.
but if you got a small one, small
And we
contract.
have to, you may want to have the ability to say, hey, I think there's a problem with these two employees, there's been some complaints. You as the employer, the contractor who we've hired, you need to test and show us.
I don't think you can do that
that's the
either.
proper way to do it. Yeah. So on the
The
federal,
government can require that.
on the federal portion, under suspicion, you can. So, but the only way, the only, somebody else, another entity can't drug test another person.
That's right.
So it has to be the employer. We're not the employer.
Right.
We're,
We're the
so it has
contractor.
to
It would be
read.
legal for us to just say, hey, check that guy out.
Yeah. Yeah. It happens all the time.
Okay.
I have no problem with that then.
Yeah, let's make sure that's in.
Okay, we'll make some changes.
Okay, question, I'm wondering why there's a motion to table it.
Yeah, so we can make it in ordinance form, add the stuff, all the items that we want to add to it.
The amendments would-
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's what I thought approving it was gonna do.
Well, that's still missing these items that Kayla's
There's a
brought up.
number of items
It's
in the
missing
procurement
these
code
items.
that I think would be good to draft in here,
Yeah,
so
let's get them drafted.
it would require some
Yeah,
significant.
so we can get the finished ordinance, we just approve it. So,
Okay.
okay, so I still have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Okay, item G6. Discusses possible action on approving change order number 14 as a credit in the amount of $670,494.19. Thanks, Heath. From JP Excavating for adjustments to change order number 11 for the North Slope remediation. So these change orders, real quick, this is basically, we're moving the power line. So all that energy was going to take to shore up that power line, basically come out of that. Is that,
Dropped to about $600,000.
600,000, which almost paid for the underground power. I mean, that's,
So on the agenda item sheet, you can see the things that were taken out of there. Well, on the change order, you can.
yeah.
essentially to summarize that, it's the mobilization, the shoring, the temporary structure, and then it's temporary structure removal.
Yeah.
Those are the basic, the four items that were removed from there, and that's a total of 600
Yeah.
It's all the
plus
yellows out.
670.
And how much is the underground costing?
Oh, goodness.
Well, you had,
It's about like around 800.
yeah.
Thousand.
So it's only.
And some change. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's just an extra 200,000
It's,
to
have
go
that.
underground. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that in the proposed roadway of the new subdivision?
yes, that matches.
Yes, so what that is matching, that's why you're seeing you're gonna see a cut on that one side, because their proposal is to drop, for the subdivision, was to cut about 5 feet right through there. And then on the other end, you're gonna see kind of a dike type of a thing, a temporary dike that builds up to put the power line underneath that, where it drops off the hill. And then you'll be, like I said, you'll be seeing that power line, that construction coming up the highway.
Are they going to cut through the highway or are they going to tunnel more under?
They are going to cut.
Okay,
And
so
then
we'll
they
have,
will
we'll have
slurry.
one lane road for a little while.
Like a
Go through
day.
that.
Yeah. And if they didn't have to do the UDOT standards, they would probably have it open the exact same day they cut it and place it and
Okay.
put it back. But they have to slurry it. They have to do a slurry
Over the
concrete. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Good information. All right, any questions on item 6?
Nope.
All right, let's get a motion.
You make a motion?
I'll make it. I make a motion that we approve change order number 14 as a credit in the amount of $670,494.19 from JP Excavation.
Second.
That was $754, right?
No, it's
$790.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's different on this sheet as it
Oh,
is
is
up
it?
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
No, I'm seeing the
It's
same
on the,
number.
No, 'cause it's-
67494.19.
yeah, but
Oh,
up here
our
on
agenda
my
item
sheet it's
sheet's correct.
454.
Oh.
Which one you want me to read?
Call it 671 and be done with it.
671. That's good. I like Joey's way of doing. I make a motion that we approve
Well, this is
the second change.
Oh, it's a,
Yeah.
So this is a
Okay,
credit.
I'll
This
make
is
a
a
motion
credit
that
you
we
can't.
approve change order number 14 as a credit from JP Excavation for adjustments to change order number 11 for the North Slope remediation. How's that? Perfect.
That's good.
Second.
The change order.
Amending my second.
so now we have any further discussion on this? Just a roll call vote. Chuck, on your end?
Yes.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, calendar of events and things. So the city did get a really nice certificate here. I'm sure the city staff will display it somewhere for a while. Reese Across America. This was the 4th year or 5th year. It's 4 or 5 that we've been doing this. I think it's a very worthwhile thing that we do for our veterans. And we're going to continue to do that as long as I have anything to say about it. So I would like to thank Greg Turner for all the work he puts into that. All right, we have our backflow prevention and cross-connection awareness meeting. That is open to the public. Anybody that thinks they have a backflow or worried about it, they should come in and see us because we have new standards we have to meet. It is on January 22nd, a Wednesday, 5 p.m. here at Tocqueville City office.
I assume it's on the website.
It will be shortly if it's not. I think it is, yeah.
It's on there? Emily's, okay, that's on there. Fiscal year 2025-26 strategic planning session. This is open to the public, but there will be no comment. This is for city councilmen and staff and mayor to come and talk about what we're going to spend our money on next year, the next fiscal year. This is February 6th and 13th at the Old Town Hall from noon until 4. So, and Darren said he'll get anything you want off the dollar menu at McDonald's for lunch. So, 2 items, any $1 items.
$2 menu now, isn't it?
So, all right. Community readiness meeting, this Thursday, February 13th, Town Hall at 7 p.m. I think they're doing lighting, heating, and cooking, if I remember. Oh, that was last month. Okay. I'm not sure what this month is.
Learn to run for your life.
When there's 100-mile-an-hour wind and a fire.
Right.
Okay. All right, spring community cleanup, Saturday, February 22nd and Sunday, February 23rd. Is this our dumpsters? Are we getting dumpsters on this? So let's put them back out in the community. We're not going to dump them all at the park. So I have another one written down on here. Our representative Joseph Elison is putting a bill forward that we stay on standard time, not changing daylight time. If you're interested in keeping one time as Arizona does, then call your local senator. We have Senator Owens and Senator Vickers. So contact them and say, we would love to have a time, not have a time change, or whatever your opinion is. So that's coming up.
Trying that for 50 years.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a region, right?
So actually, there's some, I got some clarification on that. If we want to stay with standard time, the state can approve it by itself. But if we want to go to daylight savings time, then all the states around us have to do it. So, and this bill says that we will go to standard time unless the federal government says we're going to daylight savings time, then this bill gets reversed.
We're currently extended.
Right now, we're on standard, but come March, we'll go to daylight savings. So that's, if we're tired of time changes, I mean, the excuse they made 100 years ago was the farmers. Well, the farmers don't care what the clock says. They get up before the sun comes up and goes to bed after the sun goes down. So anyways, that's all I have. Do you guys have anything? All right, we are going to adjourn this meeting at 8:25.
Perfect.